and welcome to UWO Now. I'm your host, Wendell Ray. UWO Now is the place where we talk to the students, staff, and faculty of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh about relevant and interesting topics. It was back in 1986. I remember it vividly, and I believe when I tell you my story, you'll remember as well. I was a senior at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and was on my way to class when I remembered that that day there was going to be a shuttle launch. And back then, in 1986, a launch of a shuttle was a big deal. They were always carried live on television, so I knew I would be able to see it. So I turned it on, and I think we know, everybody knows what happened and where you were when you saw, if you're old enough to remember, the shuttle Challenger and its demise that day. But one of the astronauts on that flight was Ronald McNair, and he has left a legacy, not just because of that flight, but because of what he and his family have wanted to do to help others pursue higher education. And we're going to talk today about the Ronald McNair Scholars Program and how it is helping shape and redefine the lives of another generation. Here to talk to us today about that are a couple of folks from UWO. We have the director of the McNair program here, Cordelia Bowlus, and Sheiana Taylor, who is a McNair Scholars. Thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure.
Cordelia, tell us a little bit about who Ronald McNair was and a little bit about what the Ronald McNair program is.
Yeah, Ronald McNair embodies so much of who we are today as a country and our aspirations. He was born in 1950 in Lake City, South Carolina, in the segregated South. One of the most famous stories or infamous stories is of him trying to check out a book out of the public library in South Carolina in Lake City. And he was 9 years old, he was 59, and he was told he couldn't do it. And the police were called. His mother came to the library, and long story short, they compromised with the librarian. Ronald was able to check out the book, and it was a book on physics, of course.
Yeah. Wow.
And he went on, be valedictorian of his high school. And today, that high school bears his name. So it is kind of one of those rags to riches stories. But Ronald E. McNair, Dr. Ronald E. McNair, and his brother, Carl McNair, who has done the most to promote his legacy, they always understood that they were already standing on the shoulders of greatness, that they would not have had the opportunities they had there not been the civil rights movement. I mean, as Dr. Ronald E. McNair was graduating from high school, meanwhile, the Higher Education Act of 1965 had been passed. There was Pell Grants. There were Pell Grants for students, which enabled him to go to the University of North Carolina, A&T, which is a historically black university, and he was able to pursue a bachelor's degree in physics. He was waffling between music and physics. He was a very, very gifted musician, specifically played the saxophone, but had doubts. He had a lot of doubts about himself. His brother tells these stories often, that Carl is very much alive and sharing these stories, how many doubts his brother had.
Okay.
And it was good mentorship and people who believed in him, gave him opportunities to engage in research that allowed him not only to complete his bachelor's, but to go on and get a PhD in laser physics from MIT.
Wow. In laser physics.
Laser physics. He
no big deal.
Yeah. And so by the time he was 26, 17 he graduated valedictorian. By the time he was 26, he had a PhD. By the time he was 28, NASA was training him to be an astronaut. So he was rocket speed up, just a genius. But at the same time, the opportunities that were afforded to him came about because of the civil rights movements, because of people like Martin Luther King and all the people who said we have to change. So when Ronald E. McNair passed on that fateful day on January 28th, 1986, and I was, to date myself, a senior in high school. It's one of those moments in time like 9/11. You just never forget it. The image was so horrible and and so his brother thought immediately. He had talked a lot with his brother about how they had gotten these great opportunities in their life and how they had made so much out of their lives. Their parents had not been able to go to college. And one of the things they noticed that was missing was that although there were more programs to help support students getting into college and completing college, there was very little there in terms of helping students see what the next steps could be for them.
Okay. So, and let me ask you, so this was his older brother that has continued his
I
legacy?
believe Carl McNair is about 10 months older. He jokes, he goes, I'm his older brother. He was a little bit shorter than his brother Ronald E. McNair. They were very close in age, very close siblings.
Okay. So, Cheyenne, you are now a McNair Scholar. Tell us about, though, your path to UWO. How did you get here? And just let everyone know who you are.
Well, I am originally from St. Thomas, North Dakota. I am new to the area. I moved here about 2.5 years ago. I originally started at UW Fond du Lac and then transferred over in August 2021 to full-time UWO. When I became part of the campus, I found out about the McNair program and all the wonderful opportunities that they have to offer on top of it being paid, as well as the mentorship and research opportunities that the program allows.
How did you find out? I mean, what, you just kind of read a pamphlet?
Well, I'm a biomedical science major, so I spend all my time in the Halsey building, and walking the main floor, you walk past the McNair office. And when I walked past the McNair office one day, there's a big bulletin board outside saying McNair Showcase, and I decided to walk in and learn more about the program and what and how it could benefit me as I want to pursue veterinary medicine in the future. And that was always the plan until I started the McNair program and met my mentor, Dr. Dana Merriman. Have I become more realize the different pathways into further education besides just a DVM, graduate school, and PhD, and what all those entails that the program was able to inform me about.
Now, you skipped over a lot of stuff that I think our audience needs to know. Was higher education always in your future?
Yes. My parents did not complete college. They both got their high school diplomas, and higher education has always been the background and driving force for what I wanted to do. I knew I got my GED at 16, so I knew I needed to get my GED. I needed to work. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I didn't know how the path looked between start enrolling my first year in college and how I would get my DVM. So that was challenging, but I had to be a big advocate for myself and find all the resources that I needed, since I was the only one putting myself through college. And becoming part of the UWO campus and all the wonderful opportunities with McNair and Student Success Services Center and TRIO has really been that support and background for me, driving, I guess, the best way I can through my undergraduate career.
What high school did you attend?
I got my GED at Woodrow Wilson Adult Learning Center in Fargo, North Dakota.
So tell us about your high school experience that you got a GED, not graduate.
So I completed ninth grade. Ninth grade is my highest high school education besides my GED. I went through a lot of hardships. I'm the oldest out of 6 siblings. So, and my mom and their fathers were not ever a role model for them, so I had to be. And therefore, that meant I needed to get my GED, I needed to work, I needed to show my siblings that their parents did not define them growing up and their choices that they make.
And where did that come from? Where did that understanding that you just explained of wanting to be different, break maybe a generational cycles. How did you come to understand that that's what you wanted to do, needed to do?
I guess I didn't enjoy, I knew how I grew up was not the considered normal.
Okay.
In fairness, I guess you'd say, with parents suffering from mental health disease and substance abuse, and of course the prison system. So I knew that I wish I had that growing up, and I knew I needed to be there for my siblings as being the oldest. And my youngest sibling and I are 18 years apart. So we have a big gap, a lot of different age ranges. And I just really wish I had an advocate growing up, and I would like to be their advocate. The only way I know how to do that is bettering myself and showing them that, they can do it as well.
Okay, so you became aware of what you wanted to be, the path that you wanted to take. So you're a freshman in high school, and then what happens?
Then I was living with my aunt at the time in 9th grade in Bemidji, Minnesota, and moved back with my mother in Fargo, North Dakota when I was 16. I just turned 16, and it was in a healthy environment, which is why I was at my aunt's, but then had to move back. So since it was not a healthy environment for me mentally, I decided I needed to move out. Instead of, paying my mother for rent, I decided I'm going to get my own apartment and pay for my own rent. And I knew education is everything to me. Like I said, my backbone. So I knew I needed to get my GED because I knew eventually I did want to go to college, which I did. And when I turned 18, I applied to North Dakota State College of Science. Apparently, when you have a GED, you can't apply to a university until you're 19. I didn't want to wait. So I applied to a tech college. I went there for a year. And then my second year of college, I applied to North Dakota State University. I knew I wanted to be a microbiology major. I was there for a year, and then I had to take a gap year off due to unforeseen hardships with a loved one, personal loved one. I had to support a house and animals and 2 vehicles that I was having to share those roles with. So I had to drop out so I could keep and support everything I already had so I wouldn't become homeless. And then come August 2020, I have a cousin that just lives in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. They offered their home up to me to get me back on my feet, continue my education. They knew it was important for me. And my fun fact, my cousin's actually my godmother as well. So she's like, I wasn't able to take care of you when you were younger. I want to now, I'm able to. So I did that, and it's been one of the big life-changing experiences on top of being part of McNair and molding my pathway to higher education.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I wasn't trying to pry, but I think understanding who you are and what the McNair program is about will give someone out there who may be listening an understanding that there are support programs, there are opportunities out there. Now, you clearly have a motivation that is different than many, so you're to be commended for that. But I wanted just to give some background about who you are, and that you weren't just you were someone who had to overcome just as Mr. McNair had to overcome. So, Cordelia, how do we select folks who will be in the McNair Scholars Program? Who are they? How many are there on campus here at UWO? Tell us a little bit about the structure of the program and who gets in, how that all happens. We know that Cheyanna saw some information on a bulletin board, but how do you find these students, and how do they get how do they become McNair Scholars?
Yeah, so let me just start with saying that McNair is a federally funded TRIO program, of which there are about 8. And we apply for these every 5 years, TRIO programs on our campus. We have 3. We have Student Support Services STEM, and McNair. And the Student Support Services helps the students from their freshman year on to graduate with a bachelor's. McNair picks them up about their junior year, between their sophomore junior year, and helps them prepare for graduate school. So that's kind of the steps. This is our fourth cycle. We got the program in 2008. The first funding for it, and then every 5 years since we've applied. Just this year, I wrote the grant in the spring for the current grant that we just got again. So we are in our 16th year of the program. The program is very delineated and on the federal level of who's eligible, what the services are, and so forth. Our program is funded to serve 25 students a year. And we have very strict guidelines as to who is eligible. Students must be 150% below the poverty line. And first-generation college. So that means that neither of their parents completed a 4-year degree. The other way to become a McNair Scholar is if you are an individual who identifies with a group that is historically underrepresented in higher education. Now, what does that mean? Well, historically, if you look around at colleges, there are not enough faculty who are Black, who are Hispanic, who are Indigenous. Mm-hmm. And so regardless of your background, your parents perhaps do have a bachelor's degree, but you are a Black student who wants to become a professor. We need that diversity. And so this is a very different approach than the other TRIO programs. The other TRIO programs is strictly low-income first generation. With McNair, we have this extra where we can take students in. Now, granted, most of our students that we take in who are Black or Hispanic or Indigenous are also first generation and low income.
Even in 2023.
Yes, sadly, yes. So I was, tell students, well, I technically could take Obama daughters in the program. They wouldn't need McNair, right? But there are weaknesses to such a program. One would be, for example, Asians as a group are not underrepresented in higher education. But if you look at them as a group from all the way from, India to South Korea, right? However, if you look at Asia, Southeast Asians, the Hmong communities, the refugee Hmong communities that we have in this state, these students are subject to the same low-income and first-generation requirement that white students are. So this is frustrating for many of us in the McNair community. This is just one example. And once something is put in legislation, takes a long time to change, especially for a program like McNair, which isn't front and center on priority lists for our government.
UWO Now is the place where we talk to the students, staff, and faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh about relevant and interesting topics. And today we're talking about what it is to be a McNair Scholar. Who was it named after? Who was Mr. McNair? We talked a little bit about him at the beginning of the program. And here joining us today are the program director here at UWO for McNair Scholars, and that is Cordelia Bowlus, and Sheiana Taylor, who is a McNair Scholar. Cordelia, one of the things I know you want to talk about is, in addition to the program and its structure, how do you pick those students who are in the program?
Yeah, very good question. So first I want to say that UWO is the perfect place for a McNair program. There are only 189 programs nationwide, so it's quite an honor that we house this program. But as you probably know, just under 50%, like 45% of our students are first-generation college at UWO. We have some amazing research faculty here on this campus that can mentor our students. So, and many of them don't have graduate students, so they are thrilled to have a student that is a high-achieving undergrad who wants to do some of the same work. So we're a really good home for these students. How do I find the students? Well, I use many different methods. I get data from the institutional research office on how many students we have that are Pell, or the students that are Pell and first generation. Also, I get data on who is, what race they identify with or ethnicity, and I do email blast. But quite honestly, that's not the best way to reach students.
Yeah.
The best way to reach students are two key ways. One is through our faculty. Our faculty some of them have been mentors. They talk it up in class. Some of them know me personally. They talk it up in class. They send me names. Faculty, I always send emails out to faculty. Send me names of students that you would like to recommend, and I can look to see if they're eligible. And what I do then is I actually send a personal email to those students and say, Dr. So-and-so in the lead has recommended you for this program. And that usually catches their attention because it's, oh, I know that professor. You know, she, they are very supportive of me. I trust that professor. Maybe I should look into this.
Now, are we talking about students who are engaged in a certain type of study? Who are those students?
It doesn't matter what the student is studying as an undergrad. The student has to have an interest in conducting research and be contemplating higher ed. Now, or post-baccalaureate work. So this is a good question because, you know, if you're a first-generation low-income student, you know, and somebody comes and tells you, if you do this program, you have to get a PhD, they're going to run the other way because that's kind of scary, right? Yeah. So it's a very, you know, we have to let them know that the objective of the program is to help them not only get into graduate school, but get funding for graduate school because McNair is so highly prestigious. Typically, our students are recruited and do receive funding for graduate school. So we say, listen, this is what our goal is for you. But for now, if you are interested in research, if you have an inquisitive mind, if you are ready to dedicate your summer to doing research on our campus, you're in, you know, that's kind of how we work with it.
And Cheyanna, have you done any research? Have you spent a summer doing research?
Yes, this past summer 2022, I conducted research with Dr. Dana Merriman on the prenatal development of 13-lined ground squirrels. It was an amazing experience, one that I will never forget. The independency and being able to work in a lab, especially under someone who has a PhD. Normally you'd be intimidated. You'd think, oh, this person, why would they want to work with an undergraduate? But when I met her, it was the complete opposite of what I expected from meeting someone with a PhD, having so much experience. She's been wonderful, so helpful, and have made me realize that working with animals and pursuing a DVM, there's other options, especially working in animal research. So working towards a master's in biology, which I am applying to UWO next spring, or I guess this spring I am applying. I will be hopefully admitted next fall to UWO Master's of Biology program, still working under Dr. Dana Merriman and the 13-lined ground squirrel. And who knows, it may lead to a PhD and working with animal research, or maybe go back to a DVM. I didn't realize all of the possibilities until McNair, and didn't realize my drive for wanting to find translative technique, especially in science, amongst animals and humans.
When you were back at your high school at home, did you envision this for your future?
No, I never thought I was going to get research experience. I especially did not think I would get research experience in a topic that is, I guess, very valuable in the science field, but also very understood. So I guess not understood as well. 13-line ground squirrels are not as studied as mice and rats are. So not every other university has 13-line ground squirrels. Dr. Merriman started this in 2003.
And what are you saying? You're whizzing past that a little too quickly for an RTF guy. I'm radio, TV, film, and you're talking about a species. I have no clue what you're talking about. Can you say that a little slower for me and what we're talking about?
Yes, so 13-lined ground squirrels, they are like little chipmunks. However, they're a squirrel species that live in the ground. They hibernate, so they sleep in the winter. They are a true hibernator species. So they, everyone thinks of black bears or bears as hibernating. Those aren't true hibernators. 13-line ground squirrels are. So they actually go through interbouts of torpor. They don't eat during these periods of sleeping. They stay in their den all winter long. They burrow themselves in, and then they wake up in the spring, and their motivation is to find food and reproduce so that they can. Yep.
I mean, when I wake up in the morning, I'm ready to, at least to eat. So,
right.
So I could imagine if I spent the whole winter sleeping, I'd be pretty hungry. So
Yes.
what was your research about?
So the prenatal development, the 13-line ground squirrels, they have eyes closest related to humans, so that's why they are so valuable in research with the translative medicine, especially finding like hereditary eye diseases in humans. We can study that and mimic that in 13-line ground squirrel. Maybe there could be translative medicine between the two species that would help us as a whole, as well as they don't wake up with Alzheimer's. They're still able to eat. They're not glycemic. They don't get diabetes. So they have all these wonderful physiological features about them that are very not understood and aren't researched by everyone. So I have a very special place here at UWO for being able to work with those species, especially since we are we are the only people that mass produce the ground squirrels and send them out to other universities, like Yale is one example that is a big customer.
So Cordelia is what? No, I know the research is unique to what she is doing, but this type of student that we're seeing represented here today, is that typical of your McNair scholars?
I don't know if there's a word such as typical with McNair. Every situation is very unique. But yes, I mean, all of them do very unique projects that relate to their...
Excuse me for interrupting. I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
One question I do want to know is how many have there been? How many
have there been over the years at UWO? We've had probably 180 McNair scholars since 2008.
Wow.
And I would say, I know I'm not just... Over 60%, I haven't done the stats recently, but over 60% have either earned a graduate degree or are in the process of earning one. And any student who happens to be walking down in Halsey on the first floor, we have a big presence there. We have a big map, and it shows where they are now. We have them all over the United States. They go to UW-Madison, they go to Milwaukee, but we have one in Alaska, all over.
How does what McNair scholars represent? How does that fit into the UWO mission?
Well, I would say, for one, that we are a student-centered campus, and this really represents that. And then second of all, it's our goal to be a research-enhanced. And, it depends on how you look at research. And does that mean the faculty are publishing more than an average, comprehensive college? What does it mean? For me, it means that we are publishing, of course, but we're engaging our undergraduates in research that will help them with the next step, whether it's going to graduate school or it's doing something else, professionally. One of the other things that students in the program get experience with is presenting. We take them to conferences. Cheyenne was with me. When we went down to the Heartland conference in Kansas City, for example. And so these are things that, even if she doesn't go to grad school, but she better, but she will. These are transferable skills. She's learning long-term skills that are just invaluable. And I really think that plays into the mission. That's how we stand out as a comprehensive.
So, Cheyenne, tell us about your path through this whole McNair Scholars Program. What's it been like to be a student in it? How are you different? How is your path? How is your semester different than any other student at UWO?
Well, I know with my path, the first meeting we had for McNair, it starts in the spring. It's once a week. I was nervous. I walked in a room with a whole bunch of other people I did not know. I just knew that they obviously were like me, either first generation, low income, or of an underrepresented race or ethnicity. So I knew we had those in common. And branching from that, we probably have more in common as well. But Cordelia had us do wonderful group exercises together where we had to go around the room, find things we had in common, see what we know about each other. And that really helped blossom and make the program less scary, I guess you'd say, and then developing those friendships and working with them, with, I should say, my cohort people as well, really.
So you go into this each year with a new group. I mean, I guess, Cordelia, what happens is there's a new group of scholars that comes along, and then they kind of travel through the program as a cohort.
Correct.
Okay, so you've got this group of how many students that you're working with?
I believe there was 10. Yep, 10 students. We did graduate training together. We went to McNair meetings together. We worked on our projects together. Some of us were in like human resources, not human.
Social sciences.
Social sciences, yes. Excuse me, social sciences, and then there was more of like a science, and then some math people. So we had a week-long class where all the science people got together and we shared our research. We get feedback, getting another set of eyes, and then on top of not only having those classes together for McNair, we would schedule outside like lunch dates, or just having those friends throughout the summer, working with the projects together really helped it move along and not be such, I guess, intimidating.
So what are the things, Cordelia and Cheyanna, that a McNair Scholar has to do to continue to be a McNair Scholar?
Well, the primary thing is the research, and they get 4 credits actually at no cost to themselves, and those credits they get for that can be counted towards their major or their minor or their certificate. So that's great. They have to prepare for the GRE. We have coaches that help them, tutor them, and so forth. They are expected to make graduate school visits in person. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, McNair scholars are highly recruited, even by universities that don't have McNair programs. In fact, a lot of the flagship schools, state schools, reach out to these students, hold special McNair days in the summer where McNair scholars can show up and they say, listen, for example, University of Minnesota has a special Dove Fellowship for McNair scholars to apply for. So they're really trying to recruit them. So the students have to commit to go visit, to be open to exploring various options. So the primary thing is the research and presenting and building that relationship with the mentor, because recommendations, connections are really important in life in general. And a faculty member can write a strong recommendation for a student that's been in their class, sat on the front row, raised their hand, participated, made a good grade. But it's a whole different thing when a faculty mentor has worked with that student one-on-one throughout the summer, help the student publish, help the student create a poster presentation, et cetera. That mentor can write a much more persuasive recommendation, and that also connects. So these are all little pieces that connect together.
When we talk about higher education today, there's a lot of folks who wonder about its value and its impact, on how it might impact their lives, as opposed to doing something else. What do you think, Cheyenne, had the decision to come to a university to pursue higher education? What can you say to someone who may be on the fence about whether they want to go to college at all?
Well, I guess I would always say, what type of weather do you like?
Okay.
So other than that, picking the type of college, I came from a very small farming community, so I automatically get attracted to small things. So small places, small colleges, not a college that has North Dakota State University is a big college. It's bigger than UWO, and UWO is bigger than UW-Fond du Lac, yet it's so inclusive with their students. I guess teachers and mentors and staff, faculty are inclusive with their students, even though it is a bigger college than, per se, UW-Fond du Lac. And not only that, but I guess just taking that step and delving in undergrad classes that you would find interesting, and then keep taking those classes if it's science or history, if you're not sure what degree you want to pursue as an undergraduate. I guess taking as many electives. There's different science electives, history electives you could take, and then slowly find where you'd want to go in your undergraduate career.
So support groups are important for
Yes.
anybody, but in particular, I guess, a student. And you have another one with the McNair Scholars.
Yes, McNair Scholars, not only with the program director, Cordelia, but as well as my cohort scholars. So even though McNair has ended in the summer, we haven't seen each other really since November when we had our UWO showcase where we presented our research to peers and faculty. We still meet for coffee, we still talk and keep up with each other's lives, especially since miraculously all of the cohort are graduating except for one this coming spring. So not only were we able to go through this research process together, but we're also able to continue our last year here together as friends and graduate together. And it'll be really nice to see other McNair scholars that we've shared different research topics, but we shared the same path.
And you mentioned a grant, Cordelia, that gives the opportunity for future students to be a part of the McNair's program.
Yeah,
So how long will
the grant is for 5 years. It's over $1 million. And students who are in the program, they not only get the credit, but they also get paid for the summer. And the idea is to kind of offset the cost of living so that they're not working at McDonald's
Sure.
or Starbucks. They're doing something that's going to pay forward. Educationally. So we have to coach our students a lot with, listen, you might have to live a little bit on a tighter budget. We've got some money for you. We can pay for your travel. We can give you a small stipend. But if you participate in this, you will not regret it. You will see dividends. But yeah.
Outstanding. Well, it's been great talking to both of you today about the program and its benefits and how it is impacting lives and has impacted many lives who have already gone through the program. I want to thank, again, both of you for coming by and talking to us today here on UWO Now.
Thank you very much.
That's all the time we've got here today. Thanks very much for listening. You've been listening to UWO Now, the place where we talk to the students, staff, and faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. I'm Wendell Ray. We'll talk to you again soon.